All right, now we should be back. No, it's not Windows Update. It's Streamlabs. Every once in a while, Streamlabs refuses to, which means I probably also have to adjust my live scene, guys. So hold on. Let me go to live scene and adjust this, because it's probably still going to be broken over there. 1 second. All right. Yep, there we go. Yeah, for some reason on this mic, like every 6 months or something like that, like the Streamlabs decides to like totally forget my input source, so then I get muted, even though I'm not muted on my mic. So yeah, luckily this has happened enough that I am familiar with Streamlabs idiosyncrasies, shall we say. Yeah, I'm insulting you, Streamlabs. I dare you to forget my mic again. All right, so there we go. Anyway, it's one of those. Thanks, Hagar. Or Hagar. Do. Yep, let's look. Okay, we're going to do some blue today, I think. We're going to do her robe and see if we can get it to be a nice blue, gray kind of color. And then we'll transition that over to the crystal and bottle, and I think I want to do void blue. Let me see what I got back here. Hold on. Gotta grab my appropriate color. So when you're mixing a blue-gray, it makes sense to start with a dark blue, because the dark blue already has black in it. So actually, this or Ritterlick. Ritterlick might actually be a good bet also. We can judge and see which one we like better. If I can find my Ritterlick. It's currently evading me, running away. Run away! I can find Shark Bite, but finding Ritterlick? Nah. Oh, there we go. Alright. These are very similar colors. The Ritterlick's a bit darker. Heh. You could do it, Hagar. I mean, I don't always do everything, every little bit on stream. It depends. But I mean, just go back and watch and practice on one part of the figure. I think it's actually better to like do targeted learning. Like if you really want to learn how to do the dark red, then go and watch the stream with the dark red, get the model and try to follow along. Yeah, Kuroniko. Obviously, we're just in tune with Kuroniko. Alright, so let's see here. What do I want to do? I actually think Ritterlick might be the better call here. It has more black in it, which is why it's darker. And I do want it to be a grayish color. A little bit muted. Everything on this model is a bit too... either a little bit or a bit more muted. Like, we are definitely working with a muted color scheme. Even though I have little red, bright accents coming up here. And actually, I haven't taken this all the way up to yellow yet, so maybe I should. I think we got the rest of the red. Let's just put the blue on, and then I can always do a finish light. So let's get her up here. Get in focus at the level I like. So yeah, so we've got little orange pops at the end of these folds, and a little bit up top as well, and on the sleeves for the highlights. Hey, Angelo. So we're gonna put some blue. We're gonna see if a dark blue is really a good answer for this. I think it will be. It's I used to use a color scheme like this all the time. It's actually olive green, dark red, and gray blue is one of my favorite color schemes for a very long time. Well, before I was working for Reaper. When I was doing eBay models, I tended to like that combo. I haven't painted anything with it for a very long time, so this will be a flashback. And I think I do want... Ritterlick is a very dark blue out the gate, as you can see from my palette there. But, I feel like I want it just a little bit gray. So I'm actually going to grab my... Where's my carbon gray? I could do two things here. I could add some blue liner in, which will shift it away from blue that way. Or I could add in some carbon gray. And probably, thanks, and probably, it depends on what I want to do. If I just add the gray, it's going to knock down the intensity of the color a bit, which I kind of want. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do, and I already know, like, I always start with 4 drops, so I know that this is a 4-to-1 void, or not void, Ritterlich blue to carbon gray. So that's our two colors we're starting with. I just want to shove it a little less intense. I know that actually when you add white to Ritterlich, it comes up quite fairly intense because it's built with a base that has a lot of high solids blue pigment in it. High density. And let me get... So this is our model, just for those of you who are joining us late. Not really late. It's still the start of the stream. And I'm going to pop 1 drop of water in that. So it's a 5-to-1 at this point. Going to mix it up. Won't be able... Now, the thing with dark colors is that... And I recently did a thing on this for my Patreon for the $5 tier. The thing about dark colors is that you really can't tell, like, what the hue is going to turn into when you add white until you do it. So I think this is going to give me a gray blue, but I don't know if it's going to give me a gray blue of the color I'm looking for. So I'm going to transfer a couple of drops over to a sidewell and add a drop of white to it. And this is going to kind of reveal what color I'm really working with. It looks like a nice muted navy right now, but you just don't know how blue it really is until you add that drop of white. You can also, like, add water to it and stretch it over, like, a piece of paper. Okay, that's a nice muted blue. All right, I think I like that. I think that muted it enough. Our red is intense enough that we don't need to take our blue down much more than that. Hello, Bob and Julie. Morning. Half orc. I see, we're making a joke because of the card. Got it. Hello, Hero Dragon. We are working on Half Orc Wizards today. Or a Half Orc Wizard, at any rate. What brush do I feel like? Let's use ye old Da Vinci. It's a Monday. We'll start with the old tried and true. Gonna get my glasses going here, guys. Yeah, any muted blue, Kuriniko. I used to say, we had a denim blue color, and I don't know if it's still in print, but you could also have used the old worn blue, worn navy, heather blue, that kind of thing, that triad, soft blue triad. That was great for denim. Any grayed out blue is going to work just fine for denim. It has to be a little bit faded. It has to be a little bit muted. That said, we're not giving her a jean jacket. She's not 80s. She's not from the 80s. I am going to... Now, this is the point, guys, where if you're using Zenith, by the way, here is where you probably actually want to take this lighter color that I mixed up, and you want to kind of paint it over where the white is, and kind of paint this base coat taking into account the Zenith so that you know where the highlights and shadows are. If you base coat over this, as I was about to do, with your dark blue, then you're going to lose all that. So if you want to preserve Zenith, you either have to use very thin paint up front, or you need to mix up at least a slight highlight color so that you remember where this goes. I mean, the reason to use Zenith is to help you figure out where highlights and shadows are, right? And as I've said in many, many videos before this, and many streams, Zenith is not perfect. It will not do everything perfectly for you, but it is a good starting point. So let's take this highlight color I mixed up and kind of make sure we put that over where our lighter white primer went. I'm probably also going to thin this a little bit. It's a little bit thick. I mixed it up just to check the color, and I did not thin it. Yeah, planer with the link, since I mentioned my Patreon, I have a Patreon, and it's very cool. It is patreon.com/paintingbig, planer with the link in the chat there. And yeah, we do a whole bunch of stuff in there. My $5 tier is all about like colors and color interactions and like characteristics of Msp Paints and stuff like that. I am currently working on a thing for the Forster's Favorites colors that are going to be coming out with the Kickstarter. There actually is existing colors, but I thought I would put colors that I felt were underrated, like that people like might not normally look at. Now, some of them, quite a few of them, are ones that I use a lot on the stream. Since I conceptualized this before I really started streaming, because it was a long time ago. But yeah, a lot of these colors, like Void Blue, for example, are colors that I think people may be overlooking some of the usefulness of. So I'm just using my dark blue to map in this area. And then I'll grab my light blue so that I don't lose the white primer here. So if you are doing Zenith, this is one way to work it. The other way is to use really thin paint. But at some point, you have to cover it over. And you want to, because it's got this terrible speckle thing going on. So, I mean, it's not meant to be, like, kept out. If you really want to use your Zenith and have it, you know, still be showing through when you are painting, then you really need to kind of sketch over the top of it to smooth it out so you don't get speckles. Speckles are bad. No speckles allowed. So see, I'm just preserving these lighter areas by painting the lighter blue over them, keeping my darker blue in the shadows, and maybe doing a little bit of wet blending in between. I did thin down my blue, so I'm still seeing a little bit of speckles here. So I may have to address that with another coat of paint. So, yay. Also, just a side note for those of you who are patrons, I have had the devil of a time with my first video this month. This is going to be the third time I've reshot it today. So that's why there's been a bit of delay in this month's content, is that I just can't get that thing to... this last one was technical issues. Like, for some reason, my mic decided to kind of go crazy. So, yes, I am late this month, but don't worry. It's all in the works. I just wanted to mention that for those of you who are patrons. I am working on it. I am just being frustrated with it right now. Sometimes that happens. Very rarely do I have to reshoot a video 3 times. But this month is one of those months. Alright, so yeah, just doing a little bit of blending. As you can see, I've covered over the white Zenith with this slightly lighter blue. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it is cursed. I mean, I was trying to kind of do a kind of a new thing to show you guys. It's on basic highlighting and shading, but it's actually using a slightly different technique. So part of it is that I just haven't been happy with how it has conveyed the idea. So, all right. So on the front here, we have a lot of shadows, and we've got a couple of folds that are sticking out. So. Primer, because it's I mean, if you do a Zenith, you're gonna get that speckly thing. Pendrake. That's what Zenith does. That is one of the downsides to Zenith priming. And if you use an airbrush, you can get less speckles, but you still get some speckles. Often, anyway. But like I said, that's why, I mean, the point is kind of to eventually cover up all your Zenith and just use it as a guide, or to let it enable you getting some brighter colors down over the white areas. Makes it a lot easier to build up bright color. But yeah, I'm like, I've used it a bit lately, but I always end up getting kind of a little bit eye-rolly about it because, like, of the speckles and the need to overpaint for me. I didn't do an overpaint sketch on this one. Well, I did actually on the belt. If you remember, I did actually go and touch up all of this so that we could see all of our details on the belts of the figure. Because otherwise it was not happening. So this hopefully shows you how nicely actually a green, red, blue scheme goes together. Using a triple color scheme like this as well, where they're all more or less balanced players. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of red. I'm about to break that up with some leather and maybe with some freehand down at the bottom. But this lets you avoid Christmas. I mean, there's two things in this model that are letting us avoid the Christmas effect. One is that our green and our red are not Christmas green and red. And that's the best way to avoid Christmas. If you really want to use green and red together and get that complementary color pop, you've got to change one or the other or both so that they're not like that Christmas bright green and bright red. That's the answer for you right there. So it's the fact that we're using an olive green that's very muted, and we're also using a very dark red with almost black in the shadows kind of red. Means that we avoid that effect. And then adding in the third color, the blue, also pulls it right away from that. So yeah, I suppose you could utilize that, Pendrake, if you wanted to, but you don't want a wool bottle, and you don't want a wool staff, and you don't want wool accessories. There's no speckle effect left down here on the black and red because I've firmly covered it over. It's done. So any remaining texture on the dress is there only because I painted it on. But the blue, there's still a little bit of speckles here and there. I'm always like, and yeah, you can have happy accidents like that where you're just like, oh, look, this texture that's totally annoying actually looks like something after I put paint over it. I mean, you could take advantage of that, but then I would also, like, accentuate it. Like, if you were going to really go for wool on this color, then I would actually go in and I would do some manual stippling on it to show that that's really what you were aiming for, so it doesn't look like you just put a wash over a Zenith Prime. Because you might think it looks great, but really it's just a wash over Zenith Prime, and anybody else looking at it is probably going to go, oh, what did you mean to do here? So it's all what you're trying to do. If you want a quickie effect, though, absolutely take advantage of it if that's what you're aiming for. Although most of the good painters I know of will still tune it. Like they'll take their brush and they'll enhance the speckles on lighter areas. You know, they'll maybe paint some more pattern kind of things on there. It's really just a small amount of work to paint with black and white kind of sketch over your Zenith, to give it a little bit more character than just the straight up. But again, if you're painting a bunch of, you know, goblins in wool uniforms that need to kill your adventuring party, then, well, go for it. It's all about your goals. All is fair in painting for gaming, is what it comes down to. When you're painting fast and you need to get stuff on the table for D&D or for a miniatures game, yeah, whatever. Your gaming friends aren't going to lean across the table and go, hey, you shortcut that, you know. Well, I guess unless your gaming friends are like my gaming friends looking at my paint jobs. Then, you know, that's the problem of being a decent painter, is they expect more from you. So I've painted over that Zenith completely at this point up on this top area here. Just to bring it a bit more in. I like how the blue and red look together. I'm cool with it. It's still a great enough blue for my skin tone to be okay with it, although I would hesitate to go much brighter with it. I may have to actually mix some gray, light gray into it to continue to bring it up. Yeah, if anybody did that to me in a game, frankly, Shadow Raven, I would look at them and say, great, you paint the next 20 models. It's like, I used to do that. I used to paint models for my gaming groups, or I would at least attempt it. But it seemed like the appreciation wasn't there, really. They didn't have to pay for it. I just did it. And so it was just like, I'm not going to do this anymore because I could be painting things I would rather paint. But some people really like that, and they really appreciate the fact that you paint for them, or you appreciate the fact that you do it, like you just really enjoy it. So it's all what you're getting out of it, but never like let yourself get taken advantage of. Like if it ever becomes a trial and a pain that you're having to paint all your D&D figures, like ask for help or get some other people to shoulder some of the work. And if they don't care enough to shoulder it, then you guess you play unpainted. Then it depends on how much that bothers you. But you should never feel pressured to paint for your games is, I guess, the real thing, right? You should enjoy it. And if you don't enjoy it, then, modify what you're doing. I'm just going to get the edge here just to introduce a little bit of blue on the underside there. Oops, I got some blue on the dress. I'll have to touch that up. That is the downside of painting in sections sometimes, is you blorf a little. But that's all right. Blorfing is okay. To blorf is human. To glaze is divine. There we go. And now I have to watch my surface control. So I have to ask myself, what color do I want this blue to really look? And the answer is I still want it to be pretty dark. Yeah. So I think I'm going to take speaking of glazing being divine, I'm going to take some of this, my dark paint, my base color, my shadow, and I'm going to thin it down and do a glaze over the back of this. Technically I probably should do another layer of highlighting before I do that, but I can do it at any time, and I can certainly do more than one layer of glaze, so let's. Now, some of our blues are really strong, and this is way too strong for a glaze, so keep adding water. Yeah, Kroniko, that's time to, kick that person to the curb. That's like, if you make another comment like that, not only will I stop painting for the group, you're out. You're done. Like, that kind of rude. There is no need for that. Like, what the heck? Seriously, that person needs to work on their own life. Not criticize other people's lives. Wow. Yeah, I just wonder what these people are thinking. Do they even realize how rude they are? Alright, so I'm going to use a big brush for this, guys, because when you're glazing across a big area, sometimes when you're doing little folds like this, I could spot glaze each fold down here on the bottom because I've got a really dark shadow, and so it wouldn't really, I wouldn't see any lines necessarily. But up here, this is a lot less deep in the folds, so you want a lot of paint on your brush. I'm going to actually unload it just a little because you don't want it to run everywhere. You want to use a brush that's big enough to cover the surface quickly. And you want to go from one side to the other. And you don't want to leave areas in the middle. So you want to put an even coat on from one side to the other. So painting my glaze. You can also just slather glaze over the area like a wash, which a lot of people will do, especially with light glazes. It avoids the risk of brush strokes. But I've lately taken to liking using a little less paint on my brush so I get a nice even layer on. You see there's not many puddles. And then when I come back, I just have maybe one puddle to wick off with the damp clean brush to wick off the excess. That should work. Yeah. Oh, good, Kroniko. I hope they totally kicked him around the block, too. Because, that's just not acceptable. Just not acceptable. We let people get away with that crap way too much in our lives. You also shouldn't have to depend on, your group to stand up for you, That person just shouldn't have said that in the first place. Yeah. I don't know if it's just getting older or you just don't care about the BS anymore. You're just like, you're going to call people on their crap. But I'm definitely to that point where I used to take so much of that when I was younger. I would let people get away with that stuff. And now I'm just like, no way. I am calling you out on this. Especially with gamers. Like, our community has long been one of the most, accepting and open and nice, communities, because we're all kind of started out as nerds, right? So I think it hurts us even more when we have a member who's being really rude or hurtful. Because we take enough of that from other people, other subcultures. Yeah, exactly, Muses. Oh, are you saying threaten the characters, Jabberwock? I missed it. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could totally give him a pog instead of a mini. I think that's a great idea. Aspire, one of Kuroniko's, she paints for her game and she puts a lot of work into it. But she had a lot else going on. But one of her players apparently made a comment, something to the effect that she'd really phoned it in on these paint jobs while she was like planning a campaign and working 2 jobs and stuff. And we were all like, you know what? That's not acceptable. The rest of her group stood up for her, so it was okay. But it's like, we take just way too much of that. Like, I know a lot of painters who paint like the character models for the D&D group, even when they're not running it, right? And if somebody had the temerity to like, ooh, Nomad Zeke for 21 months. Dang. Good job. Thank you. But yeah, it's like if somebody's doing something nice for you that takes a lot of their personal time and effort, be freaking appreciative. Yeah. For me, that would have been very much not allowed. And when people do allow people like that to get away with those comments without challenging them, that just reinforces the behavior. They're just going to do it again, right? They got away with it. And they weren't really punished. But at least your group stood up for you, Kuroniko. I don't know. Oh, as somebody who has painted for her gaming group before, that just that burns my biscuits to quote Yosemite Sam from Bugs Bunny. That burns my biscuits. It gets me uppity. How about that? Nobody likes an uppity Anne. There we go. So I'm just reinforcing this now that I've glazed it. Because what the glaze does also is it, of course, blends everything in better. So now we've got to like kind of ask some questions though. Like, I'm really looking at this going, all right, how am I going to bring this color up? I do want to mix a very light version of this color to kind of see what happens if I keep adding white. Like, how blue does it stay as I take the highlights up? Yeah, Aspire, don't do it. Yeah, I gave up painting for Fens for free long ago because pretty much one of the people that I painted some stuff for pretty much, was gloating over how, he was taking advantage of me and got such a great deal. So I was like, oh, I'm not painting for you anymore. Bye. He was one of my gaming group too. I didn't care. I'm just like, no, you said rude things and I don't, I'm not going to do it. And so he's like, Yeah. Oh, no. Never do it on wet paint. Not ever, Mad Zapper. That would be wet blending. That would be essentially using a glaze when you're wet blending, but you will wipe out everything you do if you do it on wet paint. A glaze is a tool meant to be applied over dry paint to blend in the layers. It doesn't blend in the layers by actually blending the paint. Instead, it puts kind of a filter of color over the surface and creates the illusion of a blend. It hides brush strokes. It's like if using a filter in a camera. So, but if you are blending it while wet, then you want to do something like lay down your wet paint just a little bit and then grab a little bit of your glaze and kind of blend in the edge. But then you're wet blending. Then that's a different technique. You can wet blend with glazes. I mean, I do it all the time. You can wet blend with, more commonly, a lot of people wet blend with thick paint, like base coat level paint. But you can do it with glazes. Yeah. Yeah, layering and glazing go hand in hand, and layering is putting wet paint over a dry surface and having it dry, and using the transparency of the paint and incremental color shifts to shift the color and create the blend. That's what we're doing here. Wet blending is why I did what I did on the dress too. In fact, you would have to do it to get this effect on the dress, because wet blending usually doesn't give you sharp darks and it doesn't give you sharp lights. It just gives you kind of like your base and a little bit of shadow and a little bit of highlight, because all the colors are blending together. So to get a lot of contrast in your paint job, then you have to do something on top of wet blending to make those colors come up and down, and that's layering. And then glazing to blend everything together. So it's all those different, if you look, I already mentioned my Patreon, so I'll mention it real quick, but Mad Zapper, if you go over to patreon.com/paintingbig, which is my moniker, I have a free handout there on techniques and the order to learn them in, and it actually talks about each of the techniques a little bit to say, you know, a little bit about each technique and when to learn it. And that's just my opinion on as far as the order of learning them. I mean, I've taught a kid the wet blend before he learned to layer, and it worked. So, you know, your mileage may vary, but as far as I've learned, the order that I give those techniques is a good idea. It's a good idea to have your mechanical techniques down before you start thinking about conceptual techniques like other source lighting, object source lighting, and non-metallic metal. Special effects stuff. It helps to have your basic techniques down before you do special effects. How about that? Because then you have the tools to do everything and to get the effects that you're kind of really wanting. A lot of people get very frustrated with non-metallic metal if they can't blend very well. You can still do it because, you know, then you're just concentrating on where the light is coming from. But it's just like, it's easier if you have certain tools in your box. All right, so yeah, it's pretty good up on her shoulders. I'm gonna mix a highlight. Oh. Yeah, Shadow Raven. I mean, always. Yeah, Otter. So, okay, guys, like, this is the dealio. It's great to do something for a friend, but before you agree to do something like that, be honest about how long it's going to take you. And remember that all of us always underestimate. So, overestimate. Like think about how long you think it'll take and then double that. And then ask yourself, is this going to give me enough enjoyment for, you know, to cover for all the things of my own that I won't be painting? Like, am I going to start to get resentful down the road on this project because I'm painting this for my friend who wants it painted, and I would much rather be working on this model that I got for myself? You know, because that's a long project. Make no mistake. Some of those board games have immense amounts of figures on them. And you should, you know, kind of think about that because it could really affect your friendship. Like, I've had this experience, and that's why I'm sharing. Because your friend will be disappointed if you drop it after, you know, a while, and you might just be kind of like just burned out and annoyed. And so, you know, keep it in your head. Like, really kind of figure out, like, am I going to have enough fun with this? Right? Am I going to be able to do this without feeling annoyed about it down the road? Yeah, Aspire, it's, NMM is the good entry-level position, for starting to think about light on your models. Because really, if you can visualize how light falls on the model, then you have an edge with NMM, with learning NMM. And that's why I call NMM a conceptual technique, because you gotta grok it to do it, to nail it, essentially. Yeah, Muses. Yeah, I did start charging after a while, but then in the end, it just got too stressful for me. But I'm not everybody. There are people who can do it, no problem. But if you're already kind of maybe not looking forward to it, Shadow Raven, I would question whether you should do it. Even if you said you would, there is still time for you to just have a, you know, honest talk with your friend and say, hey man, I thought about this. It's going to take so long. I just don't know if I can do it. I don't think I can do it. Right?
But if you do think about it, and you go back into it and you're like, oh no, I think I can do this. I think it'll be fun. Then it'll be good. Just I want to protect your psyche. I've been in that disappointment camp and that burnout camp, and I'm just like, oh noes. But I am not everybody, and everybody is not me. Thank God. Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Awesome. I hope you enjoy it. I'll send you a welcome email in a little bit. I also have to get on there and get on Discord. Remember to join Discord. And I have to talk to people. But anyway. So, all right. So now I'm going to mix a lighter shade because I want to see what the highlights look like if I just add white to this color. I also mixed up some blue liner, guys. Often I won't use a liner of the same color with something if I want, like, usually I use a brown with blues, but here I wanted to also get some really darker shades, kind of like I go down to almost black in these folds down here. I wanted much the same up here. I want drama. So I did mix up some blue liner. But now we're going to take some of this highlight color and transfer it over and add another drop of white. Oh yeah, and don't forget the Reaper Discord, because there's tons of people on there, like over 1,000, I think, right guys? And we have a great community. All right, so a couple brushfuls over into this well, and let's add a drop of white. Yeah, and if that was cool for you with Thormel, it's all about that. Like, you know, what the question is does it become a burden, right? You just don't want it to become a burden. As long as you really enjoy it. Like, if you hang out with your friends during the week, and while you do that, like, you're working on figures for the game, like, that's really cool and can be super fun and motivating. Because, yeah, playing the game also, like, when I am actively playing a miniatures game, I get very excited about painting the figures, because every week then, or every other week, I can show people some new things for the game, right? But it can backfire. It can be a backfire. Just don't think you're weird. That's my underlying sentiment, is don't think you're weird if you kind of, like, start to dread doing something like that. Like, kind of listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. I mean, your friend may be disappointed if you decide you can't do it after all, but it's much better for them to be disappointed and just find somebody else to maybe do it out the gate than for you to, like, take it on and then 6 months later go, ah, or something like that, you know. Insert like screaming expletive of your choice. But yeah, and then there are people like Cornico who paint all the stuff for their games and like have a lot of fun doing it, right? So Aspire, any dark red will do. There's not really a replacement for it. Although Shadow Red may be still out there. If Shadow Red is still out there, then you could use that. It's just a little bit different because it's not in the liner base. So I mixed up this color, and this triad is very much like the soft blue, heather blue, worn navy triad. It's very close. And so this looks a lot like heather blue, which is very, very blue. And so I'm starting to think I might gray it out to you. Right, exactly, Shadow Raven. Well, and you know what? Get some other people to slap some paint on some stuff. Make it a community effort. That way it's not just all on you. But hey, whatever works, whatever works. I get worried when I see my painter friends take on big projects like that because I know how much it's impacted my mental over time, like how much it builds. And so I want to save them from that. But you're not all me. Like, some of you could just like do this stuff and just toss it off and be like, la la, that was fun. Let's do more. So it's, as always, your mileage may vary. Just make sure you think about it. Yeah, exactly. So you can enjoy it, Thoramel. That's awesome. With me, it almost always starts feeling like a lot of pressure. So, okay, so I do like... I've mixed a couple more increments here, guys. I do like this pale blue for the crystal and for the bottle. So I think actually I'm going to block in the bottle in that color. And I'm ignoring the zenith right now. I don't want the zenith on the bottle anyway. If the bottle isn't clay, if it's glass, then it's translucent, and the zenith means nothing. Zenith won't help you. Zenith will not help you there. All of your zenith cannot help you now. So I'm going to block it in this pale blue color. Which is a very, I mean, a lot of people will do glass, transparent white glass, starting with this color. Or they'll use a pale gray if they're going really realistic. But I find that the light blue tends to maybe say it a little bit better. And I'll bring in some white for sure when we start working on this. Yes, you mean nothing. Nothing to be zenith. Wet blend a beastie with fur. Jabberwock, very little has changed. It's still the best way to do a beastie with fur. I don't have any furry beasties currently on the docket coming up here in this stream, because I've got my next several models picked out for the most part, and none of them are furry. But I could do something on my private stuff, because you know I've got Giant Wolfie. Giant Wolfie's over on the shelf there, waiting for me to start on. I think it's kind of a her. I kind of think the Giant Wolfie is a her. Like a goddess and her wolf, kind of like Nymeria, you know, like female alpha wolf. The dreaded jar of plain clay. Yes, but even painting it kind of a blue, like a sky reflection blue kind of helps. I'm going to grab, what I am going to do is prime this plastic card though. So I'm going to grab my white primer. Where are you, white primer? Where are you? Ah, oh noes. Nope, wrong color. I have all my primers and sealers off to the side here so that they're always an arm's length. I mean, doing this in as a little clay pot with like a little design on it would also be cool, but then I would have gone different colors with her dress if I was going to go like terracotta. Because terracotta is just going to clash with this dress like nobody's business. It's too close. Too close in color. Remember, contrast. Yeah, Dragon Day, that makes a lot of sense. If it helps you. Like, always, if it helps you, do it. As long as it doesn't make you feel pressured or, you know, stressed out or burned out. And if it does do those things, then, you know, kind of say you gotta take a little vacation from it. Man, there's something in the air. Hold on, guys. Hey, I blew my nose. There is definitely stuff in the air today here in California. Oof. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, totally, Kerniko. Yeah, that's fun to have the big scary monster mini. Just kind of hanging out. Nothing to see here. I think the greatest one to do that with is, of course, Maldrakar. All right, I'm going to thin this. Okay, so Master Series Primer. Shake it like a Polaroid picture. Seriously, people. Like, shake this sucker up because it settles out. It's really super fine. Then drop a drop of water into it so that it's about a 6-to-1 or 5-to-1. You want it to self-level. And what is self-leveling? Well, when you bring it over here and you drag a brush through it, does it close back up? Or does it keep a valley? And how long does it keep that valley? There, it's keeping that valley for a long time. I need a little bit more water. You don't want, if you drag a brush or a toothpick through it, you don't want to see that valley sitting there staring at you after you drag a brush through it. You want the paint to be closing up really fast. That's the self-level. What that means is when you're painting this on the model, it will flow together and even itself out. And it will not leave clunky chunkies or brush strokes. That's what you're aiming for. That's another reason the well palette is nice when you are figuring out stuff like this. Yeah. How about no? We have one Maldorcar and you're not going to quick paint it. Yes. It's just layering, God of Myth. It's just layering. It's just going slow. You could watch the video. I did all this red in one video. I think I did. I did maybe the base coat in the first layer, and then I did all the tuning on everything once I figured it out. But yeah, reds are nice this way because reds, the very thing that makes people hate red, the fact that it doesn't cover that great usually, is what makes this so simple. When you're trying to blend it and you thin it, it's actually really easy to get it to blend to a really nice transparent level for this sort of effect. Yeah, that's cool, Kuriko. But yeah, this is just taking my time pretty much, God of Myth. Nope. Nope, I just use glazes. I thin my paint and just put a glaze over it to tie it together. Inks are often shiny and I don't like the finish, so I don't use it. And if it's there are a couple different kinds of inks, but acrylic inks are fine. But if it's an artist ink, it can bleed. And I don't like, I've had a model ruined with that, so I don't use inks really. I'm more likely to build myself a glaze or a wash. My boyfriend, though, uses De La Rowney inks, which are acrylic inks, actually. They're pigments. They're actually not dyes. They're not like original inks. But he uses those for glazing a lot and really likes them. And they work great and they don't bleed. So if you want that pop of intense color over the top of something or you want to blend it together, those are an option for you. I don't use them. I find I don't have to, so I don't. I've gotten so used to just using what are clear brights, the Reaper clear brights, like 9094 clear red. That is essentially will act like an acrylic ink if you thin it down. It's a little bit of a different application because the base for these things are different. The inks are formulated in a thinner base that's usually higher acrylic, and you don't need to thin them as much usually, depending on what effect you're trying to get. So now I'm just putting in some spot highlights, guys, and then I'm taking the paint that's kind of on either side and blending them in a little bit here on her collar. I just want to bring out that cuff there and kind of assess how it looks. Yeah, I used a glaze earlier actually on the blue on her back. So glaze, you can see it. So all right, here's the good and bad of glazes. They are colored water. They're really, really, really thin. Like, look how thin that is. Like, that's even thinner than a wash. Glazes are even thinner than washes. The downside of that is you can't let them pool. If you let them pool, you get these coffee marks, coffee stains. And that looks terrible on your model. So the key to a glaze is to paint it over the surface in a thin layer very quickly, then rinse out your brush and dry it off, and come back and use your brush to kind of slurp off any puddles you see, so that it just dries in one nice, very thin coat, no pooling, not at all like a wash. And what that does is lays a thin layer of that color over the top of everything, and it blends things together. So essentially it's similar to an ink, but you don't get the shinier finish. That is one thing I don't like about the De La Rowney's is they do not have a matte finish. A lot of art products are like that, although now they're changing it up. Like there's more demand for a truly matte product. So the fine arts community is the companies are starting to produce that sort of thing. I was so frustrated when I was a 2D painter as a kid because it said matte, but it wasn't. They don't have a bad finish though. Yeah, I'm the same way with Mal on her mama. That dragon is so huge, and you want to figure out how to work all the different colored heads into the body, but it is a challenge. There's just so much of it. There's so much dragon. Yeah, the other thing is to learn layering, which has a specific brushstroke, God of Myth. I do a lot of layering on the show. I do a lot of layering and wet blending. You could do either to get your blends. Layering is like painting with a wash, but with very little paint on your brush. So here, let me show you layering. Oh, you also could, I think I covered this, and I've got a free video up on Reaper's YouTube called Thinning Msp Paints, and it shows you how much to thin MSPs for each of the techniques like I'm talking about right now. We cover it, I show examples, I apply the paint, and I show you what to look for. So, Quindy, do we have that link? The Thinning Msp Paints. It was a class I did for ReaperCon last year when we did it online, and it is free on the YouTube. You can watch the whole thing. Yeah, there we go. Quindy's got it. So yeah, you could go and look at that, and you'll see some layering and some glazing and things like that. God of Myth, and you'll see me doing it. And actually, I'm doing it with blues because blues are one of the best ones to show that sort of thing with. All right, I'm going to take some of this primer, guys. Actually, I'm going to grab a bigger brush because I want to cover the surface faster. 1 second. Maybe I'll use a synthetic. I have a synthetic over here these days. It definitely is having a little bit of issue because it's a synthetic. But sometimes I don't like using my good hairs for primer. Just going to brush it over the top. I've thinned it so it should self-level and make a smooth coat. Very important on this crystal. You don't have to prime green stuff, but you can. Now, a synthetic bristle is a harder bristle, so it is going to leave some brush strokes unless I'm very careful to use a little bit of extra paint. And kind of dab it on so that it kind of levels and doesn't. There we go. Yeah, well, of course you can do it, but do you enjoy it? Is it the way you wanted your mouth to turn out? Probably not. It's such a great model that it really rewards. I know that was the challenge, right? 5 days, size 0 brush, but Mal really rewards spending a little extra time. So much as that challenge was fun and frantic for everybody involved, it would have given me a headache. All right. So yeah, just to reiterate, always thin the Reaper brush on primer. Always, always, always thin it a little bit. 4-to-1, 3-to-1, or 4-to-1, or 5-to-1, or 6-to-1, whatever is your taste. It airbrushes great, from what I've heard. All right, so we've got that laid down so that it can dry, so that I can fill in the blade with that same blue crystal color. Now I'm going to go back to here and do some layering. First rule of layering is a brush with a really, really good point. Second rule of layering is thin your paint so you're almost painting with a wash. Third rule of layering is very little paint on your brush. You do not want to leave puddles. I'm going to try that with this blue and see if I can get a nice layering stroke just to demo it real quick. Point your brush toward the shadow, pull it back toward the highlight. You want to do little lines. You don't want to be able to see your little lines. If you can see your little lines after they're put down, then you want to do a glaze afterwards, or you want to maybe thin your paint a little bit more. However, thinning your paint and using very little on the brush means that you have absolute control. You will not get puddles, it will not run, you will be able to very precisely lay down the paint. I can see my brush strokes a little bit there, see them? So let's glaze. Grab my glaze. I'm just going to spot glaze here. I'm going to just glaze this area. I'm going to glaze pretty much, follow this dark border pretty much all the way around this fold. Oftentimes you don't want to spot glaze, but with this, since I have that dark shadow all around this fold, I can do it. My glaze is going to look darker than it's going to dry, because that's what acrylic paint does. One layer, don't mess with it, let it dry. If you see any pooling, take your brush after you rinse it out and wick it off. You can also come back with kind of a damp brush and kind of use water to feather the edges of the glaze in if you're doing a spot glaze. And what that did was it dropped that down a little bit, so it's a little less light. It's not as light as it was up here, and it blended it in a little bit. And you always do a little bit of glaze. instead of a lot, because you could always put another layer of glaze on, but you can't take it off. So if you put it on too heavy to begin with and you lose all your work, then it's going to be a lot more. You're going to have to repeat everything. Whereas if you just put one light layer of glaze on and you're like, well, that could blend a little bit better, then you can just come back with a second coat of glaze and it takes no time at all and you don't have to repaint anything. So I just wanted something simple. Jabberwock. Something simple and more like a spear, because she's a half-orc. She may be extremely civilized and in a very fancy dress and have all of the comforts of like wizardly goodness, but you can't take the orc out of the half-orc, so that's kind of what I'm going with. She still has a stabby thing. She would look at a staff and just kind of go, can I still use this to defend myself? No? We have to fix that. Especially if she's expected to fight in a long dress. Yeah, I think working on it in small sections is the way to do it, Otter Mama. And if you're like me, you work on the wings first because wings are your most boring thing to paint and you hate painting them. So if you get the most hated thing out of the way when you have energy for the model, that means that you've only got the good stuff left. So that's my strategy, but you know, other people may not hate wings as much as I do. I've painted so many of them, and they're so big and they're so flat. Learn your foibles as mini painters, people. Learn and acknowledge if there is something that you really just don't enjoy painting, and try to get that out of the way first on models when you have to paint something like that. Some people hate cloaks. Some people hate eyeballs. But just figure out, you know, what it is that makes you, like, kind of go cringe. And make sure you're not, like, leaving that to be the last thing on the model or you're never going to finish it. In my experience. Because your hate of the thing is going to rise up along with your, like, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this model and I want to start a new project. And is going to directly keep you from finishing the model. So, having run into that myself, I'm just like, all right, wings first. Yeah, that could be hard and ambitious, Kroniko. Big lag. Bummer. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I wanted a spear tip, right? I also wanted it to nestle in between these horns. So, and the other thing is I wanted some height to the figure. Before, the figure was kind of like just, her visual height slant was kind of like this, because she just had that little bone doodad or whatever it is, like kind of on top of this area. But I wanted some elevation, because when you could put a strong diagonal in a figure, it really increases the dynamism of the figure, like the compositionally, it increases how exciting the figure is to look at. And so we've got two diagonals now, and we've linked them up. So what I have is this one diagonal here from the tip of the spear to the tip of the bottle. And then from the tip of the bottle, I can also draw a line directly down the front of the model along that belt. And it goes directly down to this little wrap at the end of her spear. So I can essentially make this little wrap also blue. And then essentially I'll have like a great triangle. Instead of just a kind of a very solid one-dimensional model, I'll have created with color a more exciting composition. Do you see that? Does that make sense to you guys? Yeah, I can do stretch time in a second. I want to make sure you guys get this. Like, this is important when you're working with a very, very, like, stable model with not a lot of angles. Because before, like, her staff went up to there, right? It's like almost horizontal, a horizontal line across the top of her. But now we have these two angles, and I can accentuate them by making them all this pale blue, which, since it is a light and a brighter color, it will stand out on the model. And in this case, I'm just going to highlight that little wrap with that. And then when I put the blue up here, then you don't just have a horizontal, vertical, like really kind of just standing there model anymore. This is especially important with the models just standing there. But you've introduced interesting angles that will then draw the eye around the model and make her so much more interesting. Can you see that? Or did we do that all to when Twitch was completely exploded? Hopefully you didn't lose most of that. I can repeat. But that's really important if you're looking to like spice up a bland model. Yeah. Yeah, this is about composition. We don't talk a lot about composition on the stream. We talk a lot more about color. But composition is really important too. And you can change it with color. You can influence it with color by putting your accents, you know, the light and bright things that are going to draw the eye, and paying attention to where your diagonals are. Izzy did a great job here in that she introduced some different diagonals. See, there's a diagonal here, and a diagonal there, and a diagonal there. So she's kind of got a little Z here, but it's all focused around in here, and it wasn't helping up here. And so what I did then is kind of drew a line and went, okay, well, I can get this, but can I get this? I can raise up this spear. So give the model, when you give a model more height, you make it more dynamic. So that's why you see so many of these little figures up on a taller base, or the base is built up vertically, not wide. So whenever you can, when you're basing, build up. When you've got a model that maybe needs some height to get some visual interest. And then pay attention to your angles on the model, your accents. You already know that you want to repeat colors around the figure to make the eye move around the figure. But this is like, you know, how you can take that and raise it to the next level, is paying attention to your angles. And building it, like, this is a very unbalanced triangle, which is also why it adds visual interest. If it was like a blue thing here, a blue thing here, and a blue thing there, it wouldn't be as effective. But because it's a triangle turned on its tip, it means it's more interesting to us. Unbalanced things are more interesting to us. Asymmetrical things that look like they're going to fall over in our heads, in our subconscious minds, are more interesting to us than stuff that's obviously horizontal or square, or, you know, a triangle with its broad base, you know, solidly on the ground. All those things are more boring. So when you can turn something up on its edge, make an inverted triangle, you know, do something that's a little unbalanced, that's at an angle and not at a horizontal, that's when you add more visual interest, more excitement into the model. And with a very solid, you know, kind of, I hate to say boring. She's not really boring, but you know what I mean, right? She's very flat. She doesn't have a lot of dynamic motion to her. I'm going to just put her on the knife so that we can look at her while we do our stretches. So yeah, thinking about that stuff. I mean, the crystal is simple. Could I have done a much, you know, more fancy job on it? Absolutely, I could. If it was for competition, I would. But as it is, I'm very happy with her. I'll probably keep this model, honestly. I like her that much. If she turns out as well as I anticipate. Lagging and buffering, weather. You need, Twisted Oma, you need a nap. 40 hours, you're going to start hallucinating soon. And I don't want you to hallucinate me telling you to, like, paint everything black. If you can, if you've been sitting, please get up and stretch, everybody. Lack of sleep totally deep sixes your body. Totally get some sleep if you can. Even if it's just a little bit. Already stretching. Yep, stretch, zombies. Stretch! Stretch your zombie limbs. Gotta make sure we are in good shape to finish the blue on this half work. Good deal. I'm imagining your zombie limbs, like, stretching, and it could be alarming, right? Like, your muscles might decide to, like, shed little bits and stuff. It's kind of gross, but probably makes stretching an adventure when you're a zombie. Or is it only, like, you know, your followers who are zombies, and you're just the necromancer? I was never clear on that, zombies. Oh, okay. Detachable arms. That works. Hey, Spookrific. Yeah, if you're already a canvas painter, Spook, especially if you use acrylics, you kind of have a leg up. Depending on how small you work, but if you've got a lot of fine motor control, you can really
I'm sorry, it's stretch break time. But you can really get good results pretty fast. It's just paint consistency at that point. We work with really thin paint. The 2D artists I've talked to who have tried mini painting compare it to gouache. That's the closest consistency. But even then, gouache is worked a little bit thicker usually. Yeah, so you're a lich. That's good to know. All right, so I'm going to go and do my floor exercise real quick, and then I'll be right back, and we'll continue with our blue. All right. Let's get ourselves back together. Doo-doo. Oh, yeah. You like gouache? If you like gouache, you probably would enjoy mini painting then. We use watercolor brushes for it, Spook. Like the Da Vinci Maestro Series 7, or no, sorry, Da Vinci Maestro Series 10 size 1, the Winsor Newton Series 7, and the, like, Raphael. Swiss Army Lich. Now I'm kind of disturbed that the Swiss Army would have liches in it. Like, does everybody's army have liches in it, and it's just a well-kept secret, or is the Swiss Army particularly undead friendly? All right, let's get some blue on this. Now that we've got our primer down, we can get this on. And I still am thinking about doing a blend with this pale blue going up to like a crimson tip, because that'll bring the red up into this again. I'm using a real thin paint for a base coat here. Your army is mostly unicorns. The Scottish army is full of unicorns. Right. So the Swiss army isn't neutral because they want to be. The Swiss army is, the Swiss army is neutral because nobody wants to fight them because they have liches. That makes sense, I guess. Alrighty. And I'm just going to kind of use my blue liner to define that crystal. I will need some like gold, and probably will make these little horns holding the crystal in. So we will bring in some extra colors, but they'll be very small. NMM gold does count as a yellow, and we don't otherwise have yellow on this piece. So I have some choices about how to work with that. I want to darken down that area. Just leave that in there. Leave that one ring there. More or less. So yeah. Y'all know I don't usually do conversions on the models that I paint on the stream, but this one, she definitely needed something. Because I really liked all the rest of her. I just didn't like the top of the staff.
And when that happens, it's just so easy to just snip it off and do something else. Either stealing somebody else's staff top, or just like, in this case, you know, it was very simple to just whittle a spear blade. I had never tried doing that before, but I thought it would work, and so I'm pretty happy about it. It looks a little cockeyed right now, so I'll have to fix it. There we go. Sacred defenders of the last wild haggis. All right, now we're getting into Scottish in-jokes. I'm out. I'm like, I don't get this humor. Oh, noes. There. All right. We've got some blue. Fantastic. And I like the blue. The blue works. I anticipated that the blue would work. I'm going to put one more coat over this. When you're dealing with this, with bladed objects with edges like gems, try to make your paint real thin. You want to preserve all the sharpness of those edges. Here we are. Looking good. Excellent. Excellent, eh? Good, 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 good. Yeah. More and more I'm going toward making her hair brown instead of black. Black is an obvious choice. Oh, and I totally forgot that I need to do those little hair bands in red too. Hair bands must be red. So we've almost got our colors. Hello, Nepharsis. So let's get back here and do a little bit more. Let's bring up these highlights on the back of this cape a bit. I think I'm still debating whether I want to gray it out a little more. Also, the like how high these highlights go back here, guys, is going to indicate the kind of fabric this is. So if I keep it pretty dull like this, and I accentuate more of I choose to accentuate the shadows to get my contrast, which is what I've got right now. But if I want to keep this at this level, roughly, it's going to be more of a dull fabric, like a wool, and I can accentuate that by, as Pendrake brought up earlier, using like a stippling stroke for some of my highlighting to create a very soft focused effect. You could totally do that. The amount of highlighting you put on an object should reflect, like, should indicate how much light is reflecting off the object. You never should go up to pure white on like a cloth unless it's a shiny cloth like a silk or satin, or unless it's white or off-white cloth, a really light cloth, in which case, you know, it probably will go up almost to white in the highlights. But if you're working with a blue or with a dark or with a mid-toned cloth, you shouldn't go up to white unless it's a shiny cloth, because then that's going to be going up to white is going to make it look shiny, and then you're going to wonder what the heck happened. Just going to put in a little bit of these little touches of light blue, and then I'm going to kind of wet blend them in using the next color down. So adding some light up there. Oh, Rhonda stream. Yeah, do we know that, Reaper? 100%. Next Monday. What time, Reaper? What time of day is Rhonda streaming? Let's just give Rhonda a plug right here, right now. I assume in the afternoon. Am I correct? Now we've made Reaper run off and figure it out. I'll get your question in a second, Crows. $2 p.m. Central? All right, yeah. All right, so around that time. So keep your eyeballs posted, open, people. I'm sure by then we'll be able to advertise it, and we'll have a solid answer. But 2 p.m. Central makes sense. So in that case, it'll be an hour after my show ends. Okay. So, models that I would like to see. Reaper has actually made a lot of the models that I've always wanted. They've done some Kitsune, and they've done the Maldekar. I always wanted a 5-headed dragon. And Julie, of course, knocked that freaking out of the park. I got chills when I first saw Maldekar in the green at ReaperCon. I remember it very clearly when I saw that model for the first time and went, this is the best 5-headed dragon that's ever been made. But models that I would really love to see. I've talked about this before, but the one thing that I still really would love is a life-size fairy dragon. So a fairy dragon the size of a kitten, which you could do in bones, totally. So a actually 2-scale, 1-to-1 scale fairy dragon. And then the other thing that I've always wanted to see Reaper try would be a phantom coach, like a black coach, like either an undead or otherwise evil or infernal take on a coach with, you know, nightmares or spectral horses and all that kind of thing, or even that kind of thing. That's what I've always wanted. Those two things. The life-size fairy dragon and the black coach. Maybe the black coach could have like Hounds of the Baskervilles running alongside of it. But anyway, it would be cool to do an evil coach. All gothicked out with a ton of detail. Neat little, like, either falling to pieces or spectral, or, you could take so many different tacts with it. Yeah, we do definitely need a Sophie bust. I'm still plugging for that Monique bust. Ron knows the artwork. I mean, I'm sure. The one with Monique kind of leaning out over. It's just her top. It's just the top of her, and she's leaning over like a map, like she's planning an invasion or a military, like strategy to take over some country and replace them with undead, because she is vampire. But I've always loved that piece from Talon, and I thought it would make a great bust. And we have a Monique chibi, so it's not like people don't know who Monique is. But a Sophie bust would also be awesome. Right, Bexa. I've been asking for that since the last Bones Kickstarter. Actually, I think I even asked for it a little bit before. I've wanted one for a while, and Bones essentially makes it possible to do it at a decent price point. But yeah, I would love a black coach, though. That would be neat. And the other thing I would like is another Dragon Rider. Like, we have Kira and Lavarath, but that came out a while ago, and I'm pretty sure we could really upgrade, like, with a new design in Bones. Like, we could do something amazing. So yeah, Shadow Raven, enjoy your lunch. Well, everybody keep bugging Ron about fairy dragons, because he's probably sick of hearing it from me, and I know that he had some concept sketches for poses and stuff, so. But we'll see. I mean, Reaper will make what Reaper wants to make, and if they don't think there's a market for it, they won't make it. So the best thing you can do is to, open your mouth and to vote with your dollars if it does come out. Speaking of voting with your dollars, buy a ton of the new Kickstarter paint when it comes out, please. I want Orchid Purple and Lotus Orange to stay in print. I'm going to be campaigning. I'm going to be using those colors on everything. Yeah, Argent seems a bit chunky maybe he's just a chunky older fairy dragon. You could give him glasses. Put little glasses, spectacles out on his nose, make him, and give him a longer beard, make him the ancient fairy dragon, where he's just kind of chubby. He doesn't do a lot of actual active trickstering anymore. He just kind of like sits at home and tells his youngsters to go off and make mischief. Yeah, Kickstarter paints. Everybody must buy them. They must stay in print. Stay in print. All right, I would need some white to remind myself there's some buttons up there, just like I did that here. So I'm going to do that. All right, get some white paint mixed up. Alrighty, let's get these little buttons. She's got a lot of little buttons. I may need thicker paint. Well, that works. I hit him a couple of times, really. I blurfed again. That's alright. I'll have some red to touch up, but I still want to add some red up here, and I need to do the pigtails back here, so red will have to be a touch-up day. I always liked the mental image of like an old fairy dragon with his spectacles poised on his end of his snout, and I don't know if I'd go with the wizard hat. I'm not a pointy hat fan, but definitely a long beard. Long beard and spectacles. Got a little bit hard on that one. But if you want to make a wizard hat for your fairy dragon, go for it. It'll make them different. But yes, we need a fairy dragon. Just saying. There. It's a little better. I got blurfed to that one button a little bit, so I'm trimming it down by going in with some blue liner and trimming up those buttons. Only if you want it to be Twisted Oma. Spectacles are not the purview of only one character. Fairy dragons always seem to be one of the more human personality dragons, so that's why I imagine them with wearing some humanish things like spectacles. Plus, it just makes for a great character. If you had fairy dragon infestation in your wizard hat, I think you have a problem. Now I imagine like a fairy dragon like putting her clutch of eggs inside of a wizard's hat, and they hatch, and they imprint on the hat, and the wizard has like tiny fairy dragons like living in his hat for the next, however long it takes fairy dragons to get out on their own. That would be hilarious. Just kind of adding a little bit of highlight, bringing up the cloth a little bit. Notice how, as I bring it up, I'm covering more of the surface with lighter paint, so it looks like a lighter blue. Oh no, Jabberwock. I have, now you're gonna have to explain the joke to all your Zoom webinar friends. Just say, if you don't understand what a fairy dragon, baby fairy dragon infestation is, then just never mind. Let's just say. Alrighty, that's looking alright. I feel like I took it up maybe a little bit too much, but that's alright. We can always glaze. Hello, Sevromato. Nice to meet you. We're doing some blue today. We're getting more colors blocked in on our half-orc wizard. She is cool. I will have to do her eyes eventually. David's going to yell at me soon. Except I think this one's off of his radar. Sometimes I do a model and he's like, oh. And sometimes, he just kind of wanders by the shelf and just kind of doesn't notice anything. Mostly if it's not like his color, his type of colors. It's invisible. Thanks, Sevromato. Yeah, It's a kind of a pale olive mixed with some skin tone, some human skin tone, which I feel pretty confident, you know, works on half orcs, right? Because they're a little bit of both, and then just a little bit of more of a rosy, touches of rosiness around the lips, the nose, and the cheeks. Nope, that's a little bit too light. Let's see here. There. Yes, you could totally do the pince-nez or whatever you call them, the little glasses without the earpieces. That's kind of what I was thinking. You could give them a monocle, I suppose, if you want more weird British eyepieces. All right, I need to add a little bit of water to my glaze because I think it's gotten a little bit too thick. And this is the model Savramonto. Half Orc Wizard. So she's this is a metal model actually. This is a white metal, not a plastic model. Alrighty, I want to take that blue down just a tad. It's a little bit darker in person. Once again, the camera is kind of popping the highlights up more than they actually are. There's a glaze. Note that I'm keeping the glaze localized toward the back and down. I'm actually not glazing over the highlights that I did up there on the arm. Yes, please sleep, Twisted Oma. Cool. Have a good day. I hope you sleep well. So I didn't really make any pools on that one. It's pretty straight up, although I am going to go in here just in case, but I don't think there's anything pooling in there. And that brings it all together. Notice how it makes it look more fuzzy? Because I'm blurring the edges together. So it gives you kind of the effect of more of a soft fabric. The harder your edges, the more shiny you make it, the more you will see like it's a stiffer fabric. But if you round out all your folds and you soften all your highlights and shadows, then that starts to look more like maybe a velvet or something that's a soft fabric, not a stiff fabric. You can accentuate a fabric and make it look more stiff by bringing the folds more to points, as it would in a fabric that was stiff, which you can do a little bit with paint, even if they're more rounded in real life. Lots of paint plastic surgery talk today. I want that to be a little bit more. I'm doing a little wet blend just to blend that in a little bit better. And we're about 5 after, so we're about there. So what we did today is we talked a lot about composition and doing a conversion of the model and introducing like diagonal shapes and repeating colors around the model, accent colors, how to not do Christmas with green and red. We blocked in a lot of our blues, decided that Anne likes the blues, so we're going to keep it. And then I'm just going to kind of tune and figure out what I'm going to do with this back piece here. Probably going to go into the browns and leathers next time. I may do some, I'm trying to decide with the dagger here if I want to do blue or if I actually want to do green and kind of echo her skin tone down here. I think I might do the green because right now we only have their skin here and on the hands, and introducing it lower down might be a good tactical possibility. So I might do that. Spook, it was ages ago, and I was 9 years old, which tells you, because I've got gray in my hair now, tells you how long ago it was. I dipped a tiny plastic snake into a bottle of Tester's enamel. I was 9 after all. My parents got me the Dungeon Explorers box set from Grenadier, and I got my first D&D box sets. And then they realized they created a monster and they stopped buying me D&D stuff, but it was too late. I started using my own allowance. No, I don't want to go green with the pouch. That's too much Pendrake. You want accents, and I don't want to draw a lot of attention to it, so I'm really debating whether I want it blue. The pouch is going to be brown, though. It's going to, because all these All these little straps are going to be brown as well, but because they're so small, it's going to be hard to carry that color. I want the color to be represented well on the one big leather thing we've got. Because making this, you have the room to really convey the brown color here, and if you can sell it here, then then the rest of it will be implied. So accent colors, keep it small. Yeah, I used to, Luthar, but I got rid of a lot of my models. Here's an old one. This might even be I don't know if this is a Julie or not. This is 1983 from Partha Pewter. This is one of my favorite ancient models. I like this griffin. So I've kept him all these years. He's neat. And the other one that I keep that also might be a Julie model from sometime is Partha 1982. And that is my baby Hydra because this is my soul animal. It's Tom's. All right. Thanks, green users. Tom Meyer. And then there's the baby Hydra. The baby Hydra is really my spirit animal. Yeah, all right. Woohoo! Julie Guthrie sculpted my spirit animal. All right, I'm so into it. Yeah, baby Hydra. Baby Hydra. So those I've kept for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. So those are my 2 old Partha minis that I have. Yep. So does that mean I need to paint baby Hydra finally, Julie? Now that I know it's yours. I bet there aren't many of that model still around out there. But I love it. I think it's a great baby Hydra. We had a scenario in my Mordheim campaign I was playing in at the time that had a mama. We made up a scenario with a mama Hydra and a baby Hydra, and I got to play the baby Hydra. I was super happy. So I know how to make baby Hydra noises. When I'm very hungry or very disgruntled, the noise I make is my baby Hydra voice. Well, look for it. Ralpartha Hydra. Karuniko. Actually, Bryce, we got ours already. But I'm getting a different set soon. Same. I mean, plastic's a little easier to clean. Spooker, it depends also if it's bones plastic or if it's like styrene. There's all sorts of different plastics. But metal can be a little harder because it's made of such a high tin content these days. It can be a little harder to remove mold lines. But otherwise, I like the weight of metal. I like the detail of metal. But actually, my favorite material to work with is resin. Like the resin busts and stuff. I love resin. Yep, baby Hydra. Alrighty, I think we're good. Yeah, Red Dragon of Kryn, I don't remember who sculpted it. Although at least one person on this stream sometimes has one, so they might know. Oh, the baby Hydra at 17 bucks on eBay? There you go. Thanks, Aussie. Oh, you get yours today? They're amazing. They're going to knock your socks off, Bryce. Like, we opened ours and we were like, ooh. Possibly some of the highest quality resin 75mm I've yet to see, in my opinion. So we'll have to see. Which one did you get, Bryce? Did you get Morgana? I got Morgana and the Green Knight. Those were my 2. And then David got Lancelot and Merlin. I can't wait to hear what you think. Oh, yeah, that's true. Ironwind often will sell older Ralpartha models, so you could look there, Kroniko. Exciting. Well, that means you're going to be totally unproductive for the just Guinevere. Oh, okay, cool, interesting. I haven't seen that one in person, so cool. Let us know what you think. Yeah, you're going to be distracted. Bryce will be distracted by Pretty Mini for the rest of the day. All right, Reaper, we are pretty much ready. Tomorrow is Sphinx Day. And I'm going to hit the stonework pretty hard tomorrow, guys. We're going to try to get it done on it. And, yeah. So there we go. Yeah. Take care, you too, Zambies. I hope your streams go well this week, if I don't see you again. And, yeah, who are we raiding, Reaper? Reaper's looking for a raid. I am really happy with this model, though, guys. I think she's turning out great. I like my half-orc.
Yeah, the claw is big on that griffin. See, I don't know if I really want to paint the griffin. Maybe I'll paint the Hydra. I'll look at it. I might need to do some green work on him, though. All right, brush for hire it is. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. Happy Monday to you. I hope your week has started off to a great start. And we will see you tomorrow morning. All right? Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.